A journey of kindness starts with being turned away. At 10:15 p.m. at bus stop 42, Shaq waits for the last bus to visit his old school. The driver refuses to open the door because he thinks Shaq is too big for 2 seats. Shaq just steps aside quietly. Then, he sees a woman named Kim carrying a mattress into a dark tunnel toward the edge of town. He decides to walk for miles behind her. His body is tired, Kim is scared, and old ghosts of being poor return. What happens when she puts that mattress down in a windy, empty field? The bus doors close with a hiss. Red taillights fade into the rain. Shaq stands alone under a cracked streetlight. His shoulders sag, but only for a second. He tucks his hands into his coat pockets. His knuckles are too big for the fabric. He looks down at his shoes, size 23, soaked through at the seams. He came here to see his old school. Nothing more. He wanted to walk the halls, where a lonely boy once hid from the world. That boy grew 10 feet tall and still felt small inside. Tonight, the world reminded him of that feeling fast. The driver saw a giant and panicked. He did not see a man. He saw a problem. Shaq has met that look 1,000 times. He never argues. He never raises his voice. He just steps back and lets people believe what they want to believe. Next bus comes in 40 minutes. The driver called out through the closing doors, not quite meeting his eyes. It was a lie, and they both knew it. There was no next bus tonight. Shaq only nodded once and let the moment pass without a fight. He could have said something. He could have pulled out his identification and watched the driver's face change from fear to embarrassment in half a second. He has done that before, and it never feels as good as people think it would. Tonight, he chose silence instead. Newark air smells like wet concrete and diesel. Shaq breathes it in anyway. This city raised him rough and quiet. It taught him that big hands scare people before they ever do anything wrong. It taught him to move slow, speak soft, and take up as little space as a giant can take. He remembers being 9 years old on these same streets. He remembers his sneakers already too big for boys his age. Teachers looked at him and saw trouble before he said a single word. Coaches looked at him and saw a paycheck. Only his mother looked at him and simply saw her son. Lucille worked 2 jobs back then. She cleaned offices at night and folded laundry during the day. She came home smelling like bleach and exhaustion, but she always had a smile ready for him. She taught him that a big body means nothing if the heart inside it stays small and scared. He left Newark years ago with more money than his whole neighborhood had ever seen combined. He came back tonight with none of it in his pockets. Just an old coat, tired knees, and a memory of a school hallway where a shy giant boy once hid from the world. He starts walking 10 blocks to the motel where he is staying. 10 blocks through empty streets and flickering signs. His knees ache with every step. Old injuries do not care about weather. They ache worse in the cold. That is when he sees her. A woman struggles under the weight of an old mattress. It sags in the middle like a wounded animal. She is small, maybe 5'5", and the mattress swallows her whole body. Rain soaks her jacket. Her sneakers slap against broken pavement. Shaq stops walking. He watches her turn down a side street most people avoid after dark. Everyone calls it Tunnel 9. Cops do not go there, unless they have to. Newark kids grow up knowing which streets swallow people whole. She just walked into one of them, carrying a bed on her back. Something old wakes up in Shaq's chest. He remembers his mother, Lucille, carrying grocery bags up 4 flights of stairs alone. He remembers watching from a window, too young to help, too scared to ask why nobody else did. He was a child who could not do a thing but watch. He is not a child anymore. He starts walking again, but this time he follows her. He keeps distance, the kind of distance a careful man keeps. He does not want to scare her. He has scared enough people just by existing. The woman does not know she has a shadow. She trudges forward, one arm wrapped around the mattress, the other braced against a rusted railing. Every few steps, she stops. She catches her breath. Then she keeps going. Shaq follows her past a boarded liquor store. He follows her past a bus shelter with no glass left in the frame. He follows her toward a mouth of darkness where the streetlights simply stop working. Tunnel 9. He hesitates at the edge of it. Somewhere behind him, An old memory whispers a warning. Somewhere ahead of him, someone needs help. He steps forward anyway. A flickering light buzzes above, blinking every 2 seconds like a tired eye trying to stay open. Old graffiti covers the walls in faded colors. Some of it looks decades old, half washed away by years of rain leaking through cracks above. Empty cans crunch under Shaq's boots no matter how carefully he steps. The smell of rust and stagnant water fills the narrow passage. He thinks briefly about turning back. A man his size does not belong hiding in shadows like this. But then he pictures his mother again, climbing those stairs alone, and his feet keep moving forward without his permission. Shaq keeps his pace slow. He keeps his breathing quiet, which is not easy for a man his size. He watches Kim struggle deeper into the shadows, the mattress bending under its own weight. She stumbles on broken concrete. The mattress tips sideways and pins her against the wall. She grunts, pushes, and cannot move it an inch. Panic creeps into her voice as she mutters to herself, words too quiet to hear clearly. Shaq steps closer. His shadow falls over her before his footsteps do. She turns fast, eyes wide with fear. She sees a giant shape rising behind her, blocking the only light. She does not see a man who wants to help. She sees every warning her mother ever gave her about dark tunnels and strange men. "Stay back," she shouts, voice cracking. "I don't have any money. Leave me alone." Shaq raises both hands slowly, palms open, empty. "I only have big hands," he says softly. Not bad intentions. She does not believe him. She grabs the mattress, with strength she should not have, and drags it away from him, stumbling deeper into the tunnel. Her breathing turns ragged. Her sneakers slap frantically against wet concrete. Shaq stays where he is. He does not chase her. Chasing a scared woman through a dark tunnel is exactly what a monster would do. He stands still, hands still raised, watching her disappear around a bend. He thinks about turning back. He tells himself this is not his business. He tells himself a stranger's fear is not his weight to carry. But an old voice in his head, one shaped like his father's, will not let him walk away. That is when he hears the broom. An old man sweeps trash near a side wall, slow and steady, like he has done this every night for decades. His hands are thin, his back is bent, but his eyes are sharp. He watches Shaq with the calm curiosity of someone who has seen everything twice. "You following that woman?" the old man asks. "I want to help her," Shaq says. "I don't know how." The old man leans on his broom. "Name's Joe," he says. "Been sweeping this tunnel since your knees were young." He studies Shaq's face a long moment. "You got the eyes of a man who used to be on top of the world. Now you're trying to find your way back down to the ground." Shaq says nothing. There is nothing to say that Joe has not already guessed. Joe nods toward the direction Kim disappeared. "That mattress ain't just a mattress," he says. "That's the last piece of hope some kids got left. You scared of your own shadow being too big? Then use it to keep the rain off her instead." The words land somewhere deep in Shaq's chest. He thinks of his father, Sergeant Phil Harrison, a man who taught him that strength without gentleness is just noise. Joe's voice carries that same weight, plain and true. "Thank you," Shaq says quietly. Joe just picks his broom back up. "Go on then," he says. "Some things a man can't sweep away for you." "How long have you been down here?" Shaq asks. "Long enough to see 100 people walk past someone drowning," Joe says. "Long enough to see maybe 5 stop and help." He taps his broom twice against the ground. "You look like the kind of man who wants to be the 6th. Shaq almost smiles. "I don't know if I can fix what's wrong with her life," he admits. "Nobody's asking you to fix a life," Joe says. "Just help her carry one bed. That's it. That's the whole job tonight." He waves a thin hand toward the tunnel's darkness. "Everything after that, you figure out as you go." Shaq walks deeper into the tunnel. The buzzing light flickers overhead like a slow heartbeat. He turns the bend Kim vanished around and finds her on the ground, tangled beneath the mattress, one leg pinned at an awkward angle. She struggles, grunting, pushing at the weight above her. It does not budge. Panic rises in her throat again, but this time exhaustion wins over fear. Shaq does not ask permission this time. He steps forward, grips the mattress with one hand, and lifts it like it weighs nothing at all. 30 pounds of soaked foam rises off her body in a single motion. He sets it gently against the wall. Then he offers his other hand. Kim stares up at him, chest heaving, rain and sweat mixing on her face. She does not see a stranger's danger anymore. She sees steady eyes, calm and patient, waiting without pressure. Something in her shifts. Maybe it is exhaustion. Maybe it is instinct. She reaches up and takes his hand. He pulls her to her feet, with barely any effort. She wobbles, catching her balance against the tunnel wall. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. Rainwater drips somewhere behind them, steady as a clock counting seconds. "Why are you helping me?" she finally asks. "Because nobody helped my mother," Shaq says. Not the way she needed. Kim studies his face like she is trying to solve a puzzle. She does not recognize him. In work boots and a soaked hoodie, hood pulled low, he looks like just another tired giant of a man wandering Newark's back streets. Before she can ask anything else, 3 shapes step out from a side passage. 3 young men block the path ahead, hoods up, arms crossed. Their leader, a lean man named Jax, smiles without warmth. "This is a toll road," he says. $20, or you don't pass." Kim's hand tightens on the mattress strap. Shaq feels her fear return, sharp and sudden. He does not clench a fist. He does not raise his voice. He simply straightens to his full height, 2 meters and 16 centimeters of quiet presence, until his head nearly brushes the tunnel ceiling. The buzzing light flickers across his face, calm and unreadable. Jax's smile falters. His friends shift uneasily behind him, suddenly aware of exactly how small they look standing next to this man. Nobody moves. Nobody speaks. The silence stretches longer than any threat could. Jax swallows hard. "We're good," he mutters, stepping aside. His crew follows, without a word, disappearing back into the shadows they came from. Kim exhales like she has been holding her breath for an hour. "How did you do that?" She whispers. "Some people back down from noise," Shaq says. "Some people back down from silence. Silence works better." "They looked terrified," Kim says, glancing back at the empty passage. "They were," Shaq says. Fear spreads faster than any punch ever could. He shifts the mattress higher on his shoulder. "I learned that a long time ago. You don't have to be loud to be heard." Kim studies him carefully, like she is starting to understand there is more to this stranger than his size. She does not ask his name yet. Something tells her the answer would only complicate a night already full of strange miracles. They keep walking. A woman waits near the tunnel's far exit, wrapped in a faded nurse's cardigan. Her name is Clara, and she lives in one of the makeshift rooms carved into the old station walls nearby. "Kim," Clara says gently, "you didn't have to come back tonight." "I don't have a choice," Kim answers. "They changed the locks this morning. I have $400 saved. I owe $1,200 in rent." Clara's face falls. "That landlord's been doing this to half the building," she mutters. "Locking people out the second they fall behind. No warning, no mercy." She shakes her head slowly. "I told you, you could have stayed with me." "Your place is smaller than mine," Kim says. "I'm not putting that on you too." Clara sighs, but does not push the point further. She has known Kim long enough to understand when an argument is not worth having. Clara glances at Shaq, uncertain. "Who's your friend?" "Someone who lifted my mattress like it was a pillow," Kim says, almost smiling despite everything. Clara studies him a moment longer, then softens. "There's an old storage room behind the train tracks," she says. "Cold, but dry. It's where Kim's been keeping Riley safe." "Riley?" Shaq asks. "My daughter," Kim says. "She's 7. They walk the last stretch together, the mattress finally light enough to carry between 2 sets of hands. Shaq takes most of the weight, without saying so. Kim does not argue. She is too tired to argue, and something about him makes her trust the silence. The storage room sits low and narrow beside the tracks, walls streaked with rust and old water stains. Inside, a small shape lies curled on a folded blanket, wrapped in a coat too thin for the cold. Riley's lips have a faint blue tint. Her breathing sounds shallow, almost like a whisper trying not to wake anyone. "She has adrenal trouble," Kim says, voice trembling now. "Her medicine costs more than I make in 2 weeks. I just wanted her to have somewhere warm to sleep tonight. That's all I wanted." Shaq kneels down slowly, careful not to loom, over the child. He sets the mattress flat against the floor, smoothing the corners with careful hands. Kim lifts Riley gently and lays her down onto the fresh surface. For a moment, the little girl's shivering eases. Her small hand curls into the blanket. Kim wipes her eyes with the back of her wrist. "I just wanted her to die on a decent bed," she whispers. "Not on cold concrete like some forgotten thing." The words hit harder than any shout could. Shaq says nothing for a long moment. He simply reaches out and adjusts the blanket around Riley's shoulders, tucking it the way his own mother once tucked blankets around him. Riley stirs slightly, her eyes fluttering half open. She looks up at the giant stranger kneeling beside her bed. She does not flinch or cry out the way most children might. Instead, she studies his face with quiet, curious eyes. "Are you a giant?" she whispers. "Something like that," Shaq says gently. "Are you going to eat us?" she asks, though her voice carries more sleepy curiosity than real fear. Shaq almost laughs, soft and low. "No," he says. "Giants like me just carry heavy things, so smaller people don't have to." Riley seems satisfied with that answer. Her eyes drift closed again, and her breathing settles, at least for now, into something calmer. Footsteps echo through the tunnel entrance. A flashlight beam cuts across the room. A man in a gray uniform steps in. His badge reads, Property Management. A police officer follows behind him. The officer has tired eyes. His name tag reads Hayes. "This is unauthorized occupancy," the manager, Gable, announces. His voice carries the flat tone of someone who has said this line 100 times before. "You need to leave. Now." Kim scrambles to shield Riley with her body. "Please," she says. "Just one more night." She's sick. Gable's eyes flick toward Shaq, sizing him up with obvious disdain. "And who's this? Some big idiot playing hero?" He sneers. "This is a business, not a charity. Get out before I have you both arrested." Shaq feels heat rise in his chest, old and familiar. He breathes through it slowly. He learned long ago that anger given a microphone only makes bad men louder. "How much," Shaq asks quietly, "for them to sleep here tonight?" Gable laughs, sharp and mean. $5,000, he says, clearly expecting silence in return, expecting the giant to shrink and slink away like everyone else always does. Instead, Shaq pulls out an old, cracked phone. He types a short message with slow, careful fingers, then slides the phone back into his pocket without another word. 10 minutes pass in tense silence. Gable checks his watch, annoyed. Officer Hayes shifts uncomfortably, glancing between Kim's frightened daughter and the giant man standing perfectly still near the doorway. Headlights sweep across the tracks outside. A black SUV rolls to a stop. A man in a sharp suit steps out, carrying a thin folder under his arm. He walks straight to Gable and hands it over without a word. Gable opens the folder. His face drains of color as he reads. His hands begin to tremble slightly. "This building," he stammers. "It was just bought. This morning. By." He looks up, stunned. "This is impossible." "Not impossible," the lawyer says calmly. "Just quiet. The new owner prefers privacy." Gable looks at Shaq like he is seeing him for the first time. His mouth opens, then closes again, no words managing to come out. He says nothing else. He simply turns and walks out into the rain, Officer Hayes following close behind, neither of them looking back. Clara lets out a breath she seems to have been holding the entire time. "I don't know what just happened," she says, "but I don't think Gable will be bothering anyone here again." Kim sinks slowly onto an overturned crate, hands trembling in her lap. The fear of the last 10 minutes drains out of her all at once, leaving her exhausted in its place. She still cannot fully understand what just happened or who this quiet stranger really is. Kim stares at Shaq, breathless. "What did you just do?" "Made sure nobody bothers you tonight," Shaq says simply. A while later, Shaq returns with warm food from an all-night diner down the block. The bag holds grilled cheese, a small carton of milk, and a bowl of soup still steaming through its lid. He sets it down carefully, like the food itself might break. Riley sits up slowly, wrapped in blankets, and takes a small bite of a grilled cheese sandwich. For the first time all night, she smiles. Kim tears into her own portion like she has not eaten in days, which, Shaq quietly suspects might actually be true. She catches herself eating too fast and slows down, embarrassed. Sorry, she mutters. It's just been a long few days. Eat, Shaq says simply. No need to explain yourself to me. Clara joins them, sharing a small piece of bread, and for a few minutes the storage room fills with something that almost feels ordinary. Spoons scraping bowls. Quiet chewing. A child humming softly between bites of her sandwich. You're really big, Riley says softly, studying him with wide eyes. I know, Shaq says, smiling gently. I try not to take up too much room. You didn't take up too much room, Riley says. You made more room. Kim laughs quietly, through tears she cannot quite explain. For a moment, in the dim glow of a single lamp, the cold storage room almost feels like a home. Then Riley's small body goes rigid. Her eyes roll back. Her limbs jerk sharply, once, twice, then again. The portable breathing machine beside her beeps a warning before its battery dies completely, leaving only silence and a blinking red light. Riley, Kim screams, dropping to her knees beside her daughter. Shaq moves before he even finishes thinking. He scoops Riley up in both arms, cradling her small body like she weighs nothing at all. The hospital, he says. Now? Rain pours outside, turning the streets into shallow rivers. No ambulance can reach this narrow alley in time. Shaq starts running, 5 city blocks, arms locked tight around a shaking child, Kim sprinting desperately behind him. His knees scream in protest with every heavy stride. Old injuries flare white-hot with pain. He ignores all of it completely. Streetlights blur past in streaks of orange and gray. His lungs burn with each breath, but he does not slow down. Every stride sends a jolt of pain through joints that stopped forgiving him years ago. None of that matters right now. Kim struggles to keep pace behind him, soaked to the bone, screaming her daughter's name into the storm. Shaq keeps his eyes forward, focused only on the hospital sign glowing faintly in the distance. It stands like a single point of light guiding him through the rain. Move, clear the way, he shouts as he reaches the hospital entrance doors, his booming voice cutting through the storm like thunder rolling over the city. Startled staff scatter aside as he bursts through the emergency room doors, Riley still cradled protectively against his chest. Nurses rush forward immediately, gently taking the trembling girl from his arms and rushing her deeper into the building. Kim stumbles in behind him, soaked and gasping for air. A tired-looking administrator stops them at the front desk. Insurance information, the woman asks flatly. We need insurance before admission can proceed. She doesn't have insurance, Kim says, voice breaking apart. Please, just help her first. The administrator hesitates, caught between policy and panic. Shaq steps forward, water dripping steadily off his soaked jacket, forming a small puddle on the pristine hospital floor. He reaches down and slowly removes a heavy ring from his finger. It carries a championship crest. Few people in this city would fail to recognize it. He sets it firmly on the counter. Save the kid, he says, voice low and steady. That's the deposit. The administrator's eyes widen as recognition slowly dawns on her face. She looks up at him, then back down at the ring, then up again, completely speechless. Word spreads through the hospital corridor like electricity. Nurses whisper to each other behind cupped hands. A security guard near the door pulls out his phone, then quickly puts it away, unsure if that would be appropriate. A tall hospital director rushes out from a back office, stopping abruptly when he sees who stands dripping in his lobby. His posture straightens instantly, almost like a reflex. Mr. O'Neill, the director says quietly, almost reverently. We didn't realize. The room falls into a strange, respectful hush. Staff members exchange glances, quiet whispers passing between them like ripples across still water. Kim turns slowly, staring at Shaq, with an expression somewhere between shock and disbelief. You're Shaq, she whispers. The Shaq. He nods once, simply, without pride or ceremony. Just a man who saw someone carrying a mattress, he says quietly. That's all I am tonight. Doctors rush Riley into intensive care immediately. Machines hum steadily around her small frame, as medicine finally reaches her small, tired body. Hours pass slowly, each minute stretching longer than the last inside the quiet waiting room. Kim sits beside Shaq on a hard plastic bench, hands wrapped tightly around a paper cup of coffee neither of them actually drinks. Neither of them says much. Words feel small compared to everything that happened tonight. A nurse walks by every so often, offering small updates. Her oxygen levels are improving, she says once. Later, the medicine is starting to work. Each update loosens something tight in Kim's chest, just a little at a time. Around 3 in the morning, Kim finally speaks. I used to have a job, she says quietly. A good one. Then Riley got sick, and everything just fell apart, piece by piece. She stares at the floor. I'm not asking you for anything. I just wanted you to know I wasn't always like this. I know, Shaq says simply. Nobody starts out broke. Life just breaks people down slowly, piece by piece, until one day they're carrying a mattress through a tunnel. He looks at her steadily. That doesn't mean you stop being someone worth helping. Kim wipes her eyes and says nothing more. Sometimes silence says more than any thank you ever could. Riley spends the following days in a warm bed, hooked to machines that beep steadily instead of warning of danger. Doctors adjust her medicine slowly, watching her color return day by day. Kim barely leaves the room, sleeping in a chair beside her daughter's bed most nights. Shaq visits twice during that first week, always quietly, always without warning. He brings a small stuffed animal once, a soft gray elephant, that Riley names Peanut almost immediately. He does not stay long. He simply checks that she is improving, then slips away before anyone can make a fuss over him. You don't have to keep coming, Kim tells him during his second visit. I know, Shaq says. I want to. 2 weeks pass. At 8:12 in the morning, sunlight spills gently through tall hospital windows. Kim walks slowly through the pediatric endocrinology wing at St. Agnes Children's Center, her footsteps echoing softly against polished tile floors. Riley sits nearby in a wheelchair, cheeks fuller now, color finally returned to her lips. She hums quietly to herself, swinging her feet back and forth with childlike patience. Shaq sits in a far corner of the lobby, folded carefully into a chair too small for his frame. His long legs draw back to make room for a passing wheelchair. Nobody notices him. That is exactly how he prefers it. The hospital director approaches Kim with a thick envelope in his hands, his expression warm and quietly emotional. This is for you, he says gently, placing it in her hands. Kim opens it slowly, unsure of what to expect. Inside, she finds a hospital bill stamped boldly across the front, paid in full. $32,000 for $157.12, completely covered. Her knees nearly buckle right there in the hallway. She reads the number 3 times, certain it must be a mistake. It is not a mistake. The stamp is real, the signature at the bottom is real, and the weight lifting off her chest is real too. For weeks, she had lain awake calculating debts in her head, one number after another, never finding a way the math worked out in her favor. Now, for the first time and longer than she can remember, the math simply stops matching. Beneath the receipt, she finds something else entirely unexpected. A job offer, printed on clean letterhead, from a newly opened community center. Position, Administrative Coordinator. Salary, $5,200 a month, full benefits included. Kim's hands begin to shake as she reads it again, then a third time, making sure the words are truly real. Tears blur her vision before she can stop them. A steady job, real benefits, a number on a page that would finally let her breathe at the end of each month instead of holding her breath. She presses the envelope against her chest like it might somehow disappear if she loosens her grip. She thinks about all the nights she counted coins on a kitchen table, praying they would somehow multiply by morning. She thinks about every door that closed on her when she asked for help. This piece of paper undoes none of that pain, but it opens a door that had stayed shut for a very long time. She looks around the lobby, searching every face for the giant man who changed everything. She scans every corner, every chair, every doorway. He is nowhere to be found. On Riley's hospital bed, someone left a worn, old basketball. Faded stitching along its surface reads a simple, handwritten message. Grow up strong, Riley. Riley picks it up carefully, hugging it against her chest like a treasure. She runs her small fingers over the faded stitching, tracing each letter slowly. "Where did he go?" she asks quietly, looking up at her mother with wide, curious eyes. Kim smiles softly, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Some people don't wait around for thank you," she says gently. "They just make sure you're okay. Then they go." 10 minutes earlier, an old Honda Civic pulled quietly out of the hospital parking lot, headlights cutting gently through the early morning mist. Shaq drove slowly, one hand resting easy on the worn steering wheel. He kept things simple, that morning, the way he always tries to. No entrance, no goodbye, just quiet movement, like a shadow slipping gently out of frame, before anyone thinks to look twice. His route home passed near bus stop 42, the same corner, where his night had begun 2 weeks earlier. The rain had stopped completely by then, leaving the streets calm and gray under a soft morning light. He noticed the same bus driver from that rainy evening, now struggling to reverse his vehicle out of a tight parking space. Shaq pulled over without hesitation. He stepped out into the cool morning air and walked calmly toward the driver's window. He raised one hand, guiding the bus backward with patient, steady motions, exactly the way anyone might help a stranger. The driver squinted through his window, confusion slowly shifting into recognition. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Shaq simply smiled, gave a small nod, and stepped back onto the sidewalk. "Hey," the driver finally managed to say, leaning out his window. "About that night. I'm sorry, man. I really am." "No need," Shaq said. "Everybody's just trying to get through their shift." The driver watched him for a moment, like he wanted to say more, but did not quite know how. Shaq simply nodded again and turned away. Then he turned, climbed back into his old car, and drove away into the pale morning light. Sometimes, lifting someone up does not require a stage or a spotlight. Sometimes, it only takes shoulders wide enough to carry someone else's mattress for a little while. Back at the storage room near the tracks, Clara found the space empty the next morning. No trace remained of the family who once slept there. Only a folded blanket sat neatly in the corner, and a note that read simply, "Thank you for watching over them." She never learned the giant's name from Kim directly. She only heard whispers later, stories that spread through the neighborhood like warm smoke. A basketball with handwriting on it. A hospital bill stamped paid. A community center hiring people nobody else would hire. Some people in Newark still talk about that rainy night at bus stop 42. They talk about a driver who once refused a giant a seat. They talk about a woman who carried a mattress into the dark. And they talk about the quiet man who followed her, not to be seen, but simply to help. That is the whole story. A giant who never raised his voice. A mother who never stopped fighting. A little girl who found warmth on a cold night. And a quiet man who believed that real strength shows up, says nothing, and simply helps. Weeks later, Riley started school again, her cheeks full and her steps steady. She kept the old basketball on a shelf by her bed, right next to a small photo of her mother smiling. Kim went to work every morning at the community center, greeting families who reminded her of herself not long ago. She never forgot the tunnel, the rain, or the stranger who followed her through both. Somewhere across town, a quiet man kept driving his old car past small schools and small bus stops. He never looked for thanks. He never looked for cameras. He only looked for the next person carrying something too heavy to carry alone.